Today we are going to make flatbread, like naan bread, not pita bread. My husband's been out of line today, so I'm gonna make some flatbread and beat him good.
She's so funny.
Super simple recipe. We call this our no yeast, our unleavened, or our flatbread. We have a roast that is going on the wood stove for 2 days now. It's going to be fantastic. We are going to have like roast beef sandwiches in this flatbread with like a gravy. Super delicious. So I'm going to make a double recipe because I want the extra flatbread. So I posted a picture with this for a single recipe that makes, I think, 6 or 12. So I like mine a little bit thicker and a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to do a double recipe. So if you want a single recipe, then watch the ingredients that you do. But mine, I'm going to be doubling up on. So 4 cups of flour. Bread flour works great. All-purpose flour works great. Do not use self-rising flour. That has a bunch of ingredients in it that you do not want in every recipe. This calls for sugar or honey. I always use honey as a substitute if I can over sugar. Healthier for us. All right. And then 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Doesn't have to be exact. These are just recommendations, right? And 2 teaspoons of salt. We use pink Himalayan salt. Then we're going to give this a good whisk. This calls for cold water. This has been one of our favorite breads. I actually take the leftovers and I will put like a butter garlic glaze on it and slice it up with a pizza roller and use it as garlic breadsticks. So it's just a really good recipe. We want to make a well in our flour. We want all of the wet ingredients to fall into the center. Does it make a difference? I don't think so, but it's fun to do. 1.5 cups of cold water right in the middle. 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Where's my big? Here. I don't want to double dip it into my honey, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 2 teaspoons, not tablespoons, of honey or sugar. We got a big 5-gallon bucket of honey from Costco when we first got out here, and we haven't even put a dent into it. We try to use it for all of our sweetener. All right, so I got my flour, my baking powder, my salt, my olive oil, my honey, and my water. Wooden spoon, always a wooden spoon. I'm just going to give it a little stir in the middle and then start caving my flour in to my wet ingredients. We're going to stir. This always seems a little bit dry when I am mixing it. I use the back of my wooden spoon to just press it down into the ingredients that are not, they look like they're not mixing well. They will. It will come together. It's a little bit harder when you double up the recipe too, but you always just want to take your spoon and just mush it into the leftover stuff that's in the bottom. And then I will start to hand knead it before it's even fully mixed to help it mix up. The olive oil in this helps it to not be as sticky. See how I've still got a lot of flaky, small get all the rest of my ingredients this way, and then I usually stick it on my surface, flatten it out, and dump the rest of these ingredients right on top. And just push it down into it and mix it. And I will do this until everything is smooth combined. All right, it is all together. I don't have any remaining ingredients. Now I'm just going to add my flour and knead this stuff for a good little while, 5 to 10 minutes, until it's smooth. You want it to be just smooth. And then once we've got it completely kneaded in and it's got a good, smooth, consistent texture, then I'm gonna let it sit in a bowl with a cover on it for like 10 minutes to really just absorb everything. I have rushed through this recipe before and not done enough kneading and not let it sit long enough, and it was really hard to roll out each of the flatbreads. So I guess it is an important step. This seems to be just the right consistency. I don't even need to add more flour to my surface, and it's not sticking. It's not sticking to my hands. It's tacky, but not sticky. And it's just kneading extremely well. Now, I'm not expert at kneading. It's just like a press and roll with your palm of your hands, not your whole hands, just your palms. You just want to press and roll. As you do it more, you get the consistency down. You get what it should feel like, how it should feel, whether it's bread, like loaf bread, rolls, anything. You can also use an electric mixer. I have not used my KitchenAid to make this recipe because we're on solar. That's kind of a luxury. Power is a luxury to use that. So in the winter, I don't use it nearly as much as I do during the summer. All right, I've got it in my bowl. I'm just gonna put it back in the original bowl that it was in and let it rest for 10 minutes. This is not to rise. It should not rise. It should not double in size, nothing like that. This is just for it to absorb and to rest before I cut it up and roll it out into individual pieces. So I will set my timer for 10 minutes and just let it sit here and absorb and rest. All right, 10 minutes is up. If you guys don't use these, they are amazing. I bought like a whole pack of these off of Amazon, different sizes. They're reusable so that I'm not constantly fighting with saran wrap or aluminum foil. I'm not being wasteful. Love these things. Super cheap. Lots of different options, but I do love them. I also highly recommend this thing. Dough slicer. I don't know. Pastry cutter. Something fancy, I'm sure. A knife would work just the same, but I do love this. There's not many things that I'm like, ooh, I don't know how I managed before I had that, and I really love it, and I do love this thing. Now I want mine to be a little bit bigger than, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 12. I'm probably going to turn mine into 8 instead of 12, just because I want them to be more of like a full sandwich. And I just want to get them into a ball and then press each side down into the flour that I've got here on the table. It will help when I am rolling them out. Now we use mainly only cast iron for cooking, baking. So I have my big cast iron skillet that I will be using with my tongs and my vegetable oil to fry these suckers up. And I only roll these things out, like as one is cooking, I will start rolling the other one out because they do shrink up and nobody wants it shriveled up. Then they're too thick and they're not big enough for like sandwiches. So as I'm rolling it, I'll make it look a little bit nicer. But this way I can just stack them over on the counter and they don't stick, so that I've got room to work with one at a time. Doesn't need to be completely covered in flour, but just enough. And then I'm going to heat my skillet. I prefer mine on like low. And this is just my fancy vegetable oil thing. And we'll let that. We know what time it is. Doesn't have to be a perfect shape as you start rolling it. I normally shape it as I roll it. And I want them to be probably the size of like a dessert plate, not a dinner plate, but dessert plate. And a little bit more flour on my surface. It's starting to stick. Normally if I make them into a prettier ball, they roll out a little bit prettier. Yes, you can use your handles, to each their own on how they roll stuff out. If it's not cooperating, I give it a little stretch how I want it stretched. Put it into shape a little bit better. And this is all just a preference. I've made them many times, so I know how thick I need them for the dinner that we're going to be having. So, but it's just a personal preference more than anything. Shape it as we roll it. This is about the size that I'm going to want it for the flatbreads that we're going to need for dinner. But this is a very versatile recipe. It doesn't have to look the same for everybody. My oil definitely seems like it's right. Can use other oils? I'm sure you can. I just prefer the vegetable oil. It works great for me. I'm going to get started on my second one, as that one is cooking so that it is ready to go. They take about 2 minutes on each side, depending on how hot my pan is. These would actually be good for, I mean, sandwiches, wraps, quesadillas. I made cheese quesadillas with these when all of our kids were here, and they loved them. They fold really easy. Now, the thinner you get them, the better they fold, but I definitely want ours to be a good thickness for the roast beef sandwiches. And I store all of our bread, rolls, cookies, whatever on these, and I've got the glass top for freshness. Alright. Got a little bit of a golden brown on the back side of it. Looks just right. And you want to stay proactive as that one's finishing. You want to make sure you've got your next one ready. You can see about the thickness of it, but you want to be able to just go back to back because it does take a little bit to make this one at a time. So you just want to stay proactive. I like to mix mine around and make sure I get all of that vegetable oil on it. You can see it just looks like a big fat tortilla. And this is just a rinse and repeat kind of operation. And I will immediately get started on my next one, getting it rolled out. As each one cooks, it'll cook a little bit quicker. That's cast iron for you. This has a perfect golden color on the back side of it. Ready to go as soon as this one is done. And see how well they just fold so perfectly.
Tortilla shells and pancakes. And
so
like
yummy. They are soft. We will dip them in the gravy and use them for the next couple of meals. The roast turned out incredible too, but yes.
Almost 5 months old.
I'll just pick it up.
And all it is
dip,
water and pickling lime.
And eat. Oh my goodness, it's going to be so stinking delicious.
You just take it out, you wash it off, and use it. And they're fresh. I mean,